questions that are being asked I'd like to mostly address, so this is my preference, is questions that affect how you walk, questions about living this out. What he's always told me is, tell them that if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they'll be where they're supposed to be. But you need a teacher to teach you what it is you need to be doing.
Okay, from Becky H. Do you think there is anything wrong with using acupuncture as a form of therapy after an injury?
No. Okay, next question. What more needs to be added? You can do it. I don't see any problem with it. Okay?
Okay, from Doc Science, says from Leviticus 11, should we stop buying any meat products when in restaurants because they use the same stoves to cook pork on?
Look, the answer to that, I guess at some point, this is why we need a modern day Talmud. Okay, in other words, decisions that were made halakhically and were written down. I'm not saying like Talmud, like whatever the Jews, but I'm saying, because basically it's just basically a documenting of these sort of cases that come up and decisions that are made, all right? So, when you go anywhere, okay, I don't care if it's a restaurant or the store, your food may have been cross-contaminated, period. Even, you know what, even if you have it yourself, bugs and other things can contaminate. I mean, you can't get away from this. Even if you do it yourself, it can happen, all right? Less likely, maybe. And so I'm not worried about, in our modern day dispersion, the idea of cross-contamination. What I am worried about is making the effort to minimize that as best I can, but also knowing that it's an effort in futility, period. You cannot avoid this, period. Do you know, like, for example, how many products do you go and get that on it say it may contain and list some nuts of some sort? Even though you know it doesn't, but the factory it was in may have had something somewhere. Even though they're very specific and clear about keeping all those things separate, they still have to put that disclaimer, right? Well, the same thing with your meat. Whatever place that they're doing the processing in, they may have been processing other things, all right? Look, I remember I was kosher for a period of time, Orthodox kosher, okay? And I went to the supermarket in New York, where they have a lot of kosher people and kosher meats, and I said to the person at the equivalent of like whatever supermarket chain you would think of, I went into that supermarket and I said to them, I want kosher, I want the, some of the turkey, whatever I was getting. And they went and cut it on the wrong machine. They had a clean one and an unclean one. One that was only supposed to be for kosher meats. And I watched them take it over, cut it on the wrong machine. I said, okay, that's all nice and good. You can throw that out now. It's no good. Okay, and you'll have to cut off whatever pieces still touch the machine, because that's the way the rules were working for the Orthodox way of looking at things. But understand that cross-contamination in places where you can't see, you can't know, all right? You can make some effort. Look, I go to a Chinese place that I really like to go to, and it has a hibachi. And I'll ask the guy before my food goes on it to clean it, and he will. How clean can he really make it? Okay? So the point is that we're not actually eating the actual animal. Let's not get into microbes and everything else here, okay? Because we're living in this world not his. Now, you're welcome to be a vegetarian, but guess what? You be a vegetarian, you're still going to have all kinds of unclean things affect your vegetables. And I've seen people open up vegetables and find things in those vegetables. Okay? And so, make the best effort you can. Yes, you can go to restaurants. Yes, those restaurants are going to cook stuff often on the same stoves and in the same, type of way that they're doing. And so do the best you can to avoid that, all right? Some of you are going to think, oh, you're just being all weak. No, I'm understanding that Abba has allowed us to be at this time in dispersion where we're doing the best we can. How much Torah do you think they kept in Babylon? Okay? Do you think they were all keeping everything? No. But they were sent to Babylon and told to make houses and to, live and do all those other things. We're in dispersion. Make your best effort. This is about showing him that it's in your heart. So your best effort may not be the next person's best effort. It's your heart that you're demonstrating, okay? And so I'm certainly not going to order anything that has pork in it. I'm going to ask and make sure it doesn't have pork in it, or shellfish, or any other unclean thing. Okay, if I'm going to get a hamburger somewhere, I'm going to ask if it's all beef. All right? Now, it's possible they cooked that burger on the same grill that somebody had a bacon burger, and then maybe the bacon was on there. Maybe. A lot of places that have that cook that off to the side because it also will affect the flavor, and not everybody wants that flavor on their burger either, so they won't even cook it on the same part of the grill anyway. Okay? They cook it separately, not for kosher reasons, just for other reasons. All right? So you're not going to end up with that problem in most places for those kind of things. So anyway, that was my very weak answer. Okay, go ahead. I just don't want to get into your personal decisions on everything, okay? I can give you the parameters the best I can, okay?
Okay, from Shakara Arnold, second question. What exactly is meant by whore in 1 Corinthians 6, verse 9? I was always taught it meant fornication, but would like some clarification.
All right. So this is, again, going to be in the Sex 101 class. I'm serious. Because we have a problem with definitions of terms, including things like fornication and whoring and all this other stuff that came out of Greek or Hebrew words and what we think it might mean. I mean, if I asked all of you to give me a definition of fornication, I bet you I'd get at least 3 or 4 or 5 different answers. You're not going to all give me the same answer, okay? Well, it means, well, I don't know. You guys can have all kinds. Does it mean this, that, or other thing? Well, sex between people not married. Maybe. What else could it mean? I mean, we have lots of answers of what things could be. All right? 1 Corinthians 6, 9. All right, well, I know what 19 is, but let's see what 9 says. All right. Because 19 talks about, do you not know that your body is the dwelling place? All right, so 6, 9 says, Do you not know that the unrighteous shall not inherit the reign of Elohim? Do not be deceived. Neither those who whore, nor idolaters, adulterers, effeminate, nor homosexuals. Okay, so and I've been looking up some of the research for this teaching I'm doing. Most of the places where whoring is mentioned at this point of my research, take it in that context, it's referring to things like temple prostitutes. Okay? It's not just referring to any kind of sexual, immorality. Okay? Look at how it connects it, though. Whoring, idolaters, and adulterers. Okay, so these are like very specific types of actions. So a lot of the whoring that's being talked about is a spiritual type of thing because it's related to the temple prostitutes. See, we don't go to churches that have prostitutes in the doorway that you have sex with before you do anything else. That was common in that day, though. Oh, you laugh. It's worse. It could be guy or girl. Which is why Paul told the men not to veil their faces. He didn't say not to cover their heads. Because the male prostitutes would veil their faces. Okay? Because that's what people say, it was an anti-Jewish thing, he said, not to wear a yarmulke. No. He said, don't wear a veil over your face, like the male prostitutes do. Okay, so in this verse, I'm going to say that it's most likely talking about that. Specifically, okay? All right. Now look, it says, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor homosexuals. We may have to talk about what effeminate is. That may be a nice long conversation, get me in all kinds of trouble. I'm always in trouble, so who cares? All right? Some of you guys have a real problem when I start to deal with this. See, because if you're a man and you're acting like a man, you don't have this problem. Okay? I heard, and I like this very much. I wish I could play it for you, but I heard this little quote out of Jordan Peterson, okay? And he basically said to men, all right, that we should be dangerous. When he said dangerous, he didn't mean like actually like threatening. So the person interviewing said, what do you mean, like to threaten people? He says, no, but we should be capable of it. And then we should be able to have it harnessed and under control. Because a man, to keep you safe and protect you, should be able to pull that He said, you should be a monster under control. Most of you women know men that there's no monster anywhere. You can look all you want, there's no monster. Mouse, maybe, but no monster. And Billy got why that was funny. Okay, so, all right, but no monster. He understands the verse where it says, the meek shall inherit the earth. I like this interpretation. Rabbi Tom, you might like this. The meek, because you talked about meek being a quiet strength of some sort. He says that underneath that, when he did some research, I haven't done it, so I have no idea where he got it from, is the idea of this is someone who has a sword that is sheathed, okay? Those who have a sword that could use it but has it sheathed shall inherit the earth. Okay? So you're dangerous, you're capable of doing what's necessary, but you have it sheathed. Okay? It's just a very interesting interpretation. And he was saying this as an encouragement to get men to step up and be men. But society has done everything it can to water down, dilute, and discourage men from being men. Because being a man is toxic, apparently. That's what the left calls it now, right? Toxic masculinity. Because we are very dangerous to your agenda. We are very dangerous to what you're trying to do to emasculate society and effeminate everything. Okay? Nothing wrong with a woman being feminine. As a matter of fact, that's what they were designed to be. But when a man is that way, that's a problem. And I'm not just talking about behaving, by dressing a certain way, and then we get into this, homosexual and other stuff that it talks about. I'm talking about the behaviors of the role, of the feminine role. The feminine role is vital. It's incredible, but it's supposed to be a woman's role, okay? Not the man's role. So he's saying, look, I'm sorry, I don't want you to understand this, but you're not going to inherit the earth if you're a whore, an idolater, an adulterer, or effeminate, or a homosexual, or a thief, or greedy of gain, or drunkard, or reviler, or swindler. By the way, the revilers, all those guys who are out there saying all these nasty things about me, they're reviling. You guys need to be listening. I know you're listening. Good to see you again, by the way. You might want to understand this verse a little bit about reviling, okay? We're told not to even break bread with revilers, and you guys still hang out with these people that have all left and have badmouthed me. Oh, but you know what you'll say? Well, they've never said it in front of me, but you know they've said it. So what difference does it make that they haven't said it in front of you? It doesn't say, nor would someone who reviles you, a person who is a reviler. Maybe they don't do it in front of you. Big deal. Is what it is. Rabbi Tom did a whole teaching covering a lot of this. Okay? All right, next question.
Okay, from C.K. Walker, says, I get hyper-focused on the mechanics as I have a sense of control about that. As a general caution, are there areas where we commonly do find mechanically, but spiritually we are missing the mark?
Look, the mechanics are the outward manifestation of something. You're doing the doing. What's critical, though, is what's driving that, which is your why. Why are you doing it? All right? Are you doing it because you think the mechanics, this goes back to Galatians, because you think the mechanics saves you? Well, the mechanics does not save you. Deuteronomy 8 says your desire to get the mechanics right is part of what saves you. Okay? It tells you that he wants to see it's in your heart to try to make the effort, but you're making the effort because it's your heart to please him, not because the mechanics are so critical. All right? And so when you're looking at the mechanics, it's okay to be hyper-focused on the mechanics. It's a matter of, the problem may be why you're hyper-focused on the mechanics. If you're hyper-focused because your desire to please him is that strong, that's good. If you're hyper-focused out of fear because you're afraid you're going to mess up, that may be wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't be afraid you're going to mess up, and that shouldn't be a motivator, but it depends on your hyper-focus is out of a strong paranoid fear, and you're petrified to mess up. He doesn't want that. He wants you to have no fear but a sound mind. So you can't be hyper-focused out of this panicky fear and dread that you're going to screw it up and not get in. Make your best effort, do it with integrity, and you'll be fine. That's my opinion anyway, okay? But you have to make your best effort, not your spinning it effort where you've found a way to justify not putting in your best effort, okay? But make your best effort. All right, next.
Okay, from Shelley Bell, says, Rabbi, can you expound a bit on 1 Corinthians 1, verse 12? As some people under other teachers are using this verse to say we are all to be as one, no matter what teacher we're under.
Okay, so verse 11 is the point, all right? He said, I've been told that you guys are fighting, the strife amongst you. And that strife is comparing your teachers. And he's simply saying, he said, look, what I mean in this is that each one of you says, I'm of Shaul, I'm of Apollos, I'm of Kepha, I'm of Messiah. He goes, is the Messiah divided? Was Shaul impaled for you? Or were you immersed in the name of Shaul? Okay. He says, I think, Elohim, that I didn't immerse any of you. That none of you can look to me that way. All right? I don't need to be connected with all that. He says that no one should say that I immersed them into my own name. And so he's saying is like, look, it may not even be the teachers doing this, but some of you can become loyalists to a particular teacher and then compare those teachers to each other. This is very, very normal going on at the time. You know, there's a guy in Yeshua's day named Shammai. There's another guy named Hillel. Didn't like each other too much. They're the ones who ended up giving you the two Talmuds that you have, the Babylonian and the Jerusalem. Okay? So you have the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel. Now those two guys, and Shammai especially, would have had a lot of issues. His house with Yeshua, because his was much more Sadducee than Pharisee, and Yeshua was much more Pharisee. Okay? And so, and Shammai was also much more the obsessively mechanical, okay? That mechanics was everything. Where Yeshua came more from the idea of, no, the mechanics are fine, but there's a bigger picture. The mechanics are pointing you to develop a certain level of character and submission and trust and a relationship that's not about being the best at keeping the Sabbath or the best at doing this or the best at doing that, but doing it the best you can for what it develops coming out of you. See, Paul was trying to explain, look, not here in Corinthians, but in Galatians, he was saying, it's about becoming Messiah. It's not about getting your works correct or perfect. I shouldn't say correct, but perfect. Yeah, I mean, look, let's go back to the question about the meat. The very simplest thing, if you're not making the move to stop eating pork, then that's already a problem. Now, is someone going to get more or less because they're a little bit more anal or perfect about it? I don't know, but at least you got to make the move to stop eating the pork in the first place. Okay? You got to move from Sunday to Saturday. You got to stop doing Christmas and Easter and do the holy days. You got to make these moves. But do you do them perfectly? I'm sure you don't. I'm sure nobody does, but you can make the effort. And every time you learn something that needs to be adjusted, you make the adjustment in that effort. Okay? And so, you know, they're saying that people are using this verse to say we are all to be as one no matter what teacher we're under. No. What it's saying is you don't have to then start to make it sound like my teacher's better than your teacher, this whole thing, make it about loyalty to the teacher. What your job is to find, look, this is different than back then. Back then you had a bunch of teachers that probably taught similar enough. They were all coming out of the same place, like, you know, Peter and Paul and the rest of them. On the other hand, today, there's not this simple choice. So this is about, they were creating factions amongst themselves over who their teacher was. And I think it had much more to do with personality than anything else. Because it doesn't say anything here that had to do with what they were teaching. But it just happened to be personality preference. And I know that there's a really good chance if there was somebody else teaching like what I teach, a lot of you would run there because maybe that personality would be less whatever I bring, okay? And you'd be looking at it by personality. I think this is more by personality, okay? And that was causing a division or strife, all right? So no, this is not saying that no matter what teacher you're under, we should all be together. Because then it depends on, well, actually, you know what? I'll even agree and say it does matter, provided that those teachers are all teaching Ephesians 4:11 teachers. Okay? Then we should all be as one if they're all Ephesians 4:11 teachers. But we're not all 4:11 teachers. Okay? So they're using this verse wrong, but of course the people using this verse don't understand Ephesians 4:11. They don't understand Torah. They don't understand any of that stuff. All right, next.
Okay, from Leanne Underwood, or Jeff, says, my boys are with their mother 85 to 90% of the time and take supplements regularly. Some of these supplements have gelatin of unknown source. Should I keep those from coming into my home?
No. You can, look, let's not get overly hooked on things like the gelatin. Look for it if you can. You don't have full control over the boys. These are boys that obviously their mother has custody, okay? So you can't get too involved there. You get yourself in all kinds of trouble. They will be fine, all right? But they're under the mother as far as authority here. 85 to 90% of the time they're with her. So respect that authority. Those boys are not kosher. Those boys are doing whatever mom's doing. Those boys haven't made any choice. When they're old enough, they make their own choice, okay? So let's take this and extrapolate it out to all divorce custody issues, all right? When the children are with you, your main thing is to lead by example. It's not your job to force them to do anything, all right? Or stop doing anything, or stop your spouse from doing certain things when the children are at their house. Your children aren't bubble popped anyway, mostly. There are very rare exceptions, okay? I was very blessed to have a daughter who was. My son wasn't, right? So one out of two. But normally, it's very rare. Okay, I watched all the teenagers and all the kids growing up here, and very small percentage of them were popped in their understanding and really got the whole vertical thing at an age below adult. A lot of them don't even get it once they first become adults. And so let's not overly worry about that, okay? So if their supplements have gelatin of an unknown source, then your children are they're supposed to be taking them. That's what mom wants. Let them take the supplements, okay? Not a problem, all right? Now, an argument can be made that gelatin, period, isn't a problem, period. It's not food, per se. It's not eating the actual animal. It's a derivative chemical that was taken out to make the capsule, all right? And so, there's people that have certain medications that they can only get, and and it comes in a gelatin capsule. I don't know. We'll have to have a halakhic discussion and have the leadership come up with a Talmudic decision. We'll start writing these things down. But at least for this situation, I can say, all the rest of us, let's avoid the gelatin, okay? But in this case, you don't have the authority. So only avoid it where you have authority, which is for you and yours. Those children are primarily not yours, they're hers, okay? So she gets to decide, all right? Because they're with the mother most of the time. That's her authority. Abba wants to see how we respect authority, okay? Even if it's doing things that shouldn't be done, we still got to respect authority. And in this case, it's not your authority, it's their mother's. All right, next.
Okay, from blame everybody else but yourself, says, can believers be political activists or just have emunah and do nothing, including voting?
Okay, can believers be political activists or just have emunah or do nothing? Okay. First of all, blame everybody but yourself. I think that was like half the people we counseled this week. No, I'm kidding. Actually, people were pretty good this week, for a change. All right, so can believers be political activists? Look, you can absolutely advocate for anything you want to advocate for, as long as you understand that ultimately it's not going to affect anything. Short term it might, locally it might. So I don't have a problem you getting involved in something that actually may make your life short term better, okay? Where we get into the problem as believers is thinking that the political system is going to fix anything. Because we already have a book that tells us it won't, and that's all going to go to hell in a handbasket, and the Yeshua is going to come and wipe the whole thing out and start fresh. Well, if that's true, and we have emunah and believe it, because you said, or do we just have emunah? Well, you should have emunah. But if you want to go out there and get involved in something politically that may actually make a difference, at least short term, in your life where you live, fine. Okay? Fine. Okay, and so when it says, do we do nothing including vote? No, you can vote. I understand your vote doesn't mean anything, but you can vote. Okay? I don't care if you voted for the current president or the last president or any president. If you're going to be honest with yourselves, except for the last one, in my lifetime, not a single one did anything they said they were going to do. So you voted for them based on what they said they would do, and they did not do what they said they would do. Not a single one in my lifetime, okay? Trump did a lot more than most. He said he was going to do a bunch of things. That's what actually got them mostly mad. He actually did what he said. They didn't like that. I'm not saying that to back him up. I'm just simply saying is, in general, your mayor, your governor, none of these people are going to do what they say they're going to do, and they're not going to do what you want them to do, so what's the point of voting anyway? You're going to get whatever you're going to get, and they're going to do whatever they want. It doesn't really make any difference, okay? And you want to do some research to really mess your head up a little bit? Go look at the first things that most presidents pass, bill-wise, will be the ones that the previous president from the other party failed to get done. So they continue the agenda. It doesn't matter that the party's different, okay? Bush got everything finished that Clinton didn't, okay? And then they keep going forward. And then Obama did whatever Bush didn't, okay? Literally the stuff that was trying to, so what difference does it make, all right? So I'm not saying don't vote. I'm just saying just understand it's your right to vote. Does it really make a difference? On some levels it might. I'll give you an example, okay? Have a reason, like for example, I thought voting for Trump last time made sense because of the Supreme Court, all right? And so that was my reason. I didn't know what else he was going to do or not going to do. I didn't know if I cared about him as a human being or not. Clearly he has issues there, okay? But so do all the presidents. The thing, it's just more public now than it ever was in the past, but you have a lot of really crazy people in power, just like they did throughout history and all kinds of, go look at the popes, look at the emperors, look at the kings, look at the queen. They're all crazy and perverted and psycho and messed up in every possible way. All right, but that being said though, if you have a very good reason, because you expect something that might happen, if you do, and you have a good expectation, and Trump said what he was going to do, he actually gave a list of who he's going to put in, and he picked one of them, and so it's fine, okay? But that being said, generally speaking, that's a rare moment where it makes any difference, all right? And even if it does make a difference, guess what? The next guy's going to come in like Biden did and undo everything that Trump did. And the next guy's going to undo and change that. It doesn't really matter, okay? Because it's such a short window of time to be effective in any way. And it doesn't take a whole lot for the next one to undo whatever the previous one did. Because Congress is doing none of this, so it's all these executive orders which are easy to wipe out. And so, what I don't want to hear, and we're about to get into it starting next year, like at the end of this summer when it starts, the campaigns for next year, I don't want to hear a single M.t.o.i, Messianic Torah-observant Israelite, telling me how important this election is, okay? It's no more important than any other election. Ultimately, they're going to lead into Yeshua showing up, which means things are going to get really bad eventually no matter who's in office, okay? So let's stop thinking that somehow the political machine fixes anything or is our answer, okay? So don't ever get into a heated thing because you're whatever party you're in and the person's in the other party, okay? Neither one of you is having a party, okay? It is not a party right now, all right? Both groups are not happy. And for all of you guys on the right, you should be embarrassed. You've had all kinds of opportunities to do something, have done nothing. You've been useless. Oh, you want to point to the left at all the terrible things, but you guys have done nothing to stop them, have been useless. So I don't want to hear it anymore out of you guys. All right? You didn't help Trump when you could have. You just can all shut up. All right? So don't get me and think, oh, well, you're a Republican, you're a Democrat. No, I think they're all losers. All right? If I vote, it's for a specific thing that I'm hoping that one or the other will get done. That's it. Otherwise, I'm not involving myself. It's a waste of time. It's theater. Okay? It's just theater. Okay, they used to go to the Coliseum to watch the big show together. So now instead we watch CNN and Fox and stuff, and we get all watching. It's just to keep us distracted and entertained and get us all upset and angry and yelling at the screen for no reason. Because none of that's going to change anything. See, the word emunah is the point. See, I've read this book, and according to this book, none of it works. It all goes bad. And Yeshua has to show up, and then it gets fixed. That means nothing is going to fix it till he shows up. So I'm not hanging my hat or my hopes or anything else on anything that's in this world. That's what the book tells me. That's what my belief system is. However, I'll still go vote. That's something a citizen should do. And with an optimistic hope that short term it may make a difference, okay? And so I'll try to go with whichever the lesser evils are that's running, all right? At least perception-wise, it seems like the lesser evil. And I'll do my best with that. But I have no thought that it really is going to ultimately make any difference. None, not a fraction. And I will not tolerate anybody coming up to me trying to get me all hyped up about how important this vote is. Okay? And don't give me the same nonsense about what's going on in the Knesset. I used to get emails from that. Oh, this thing that they're voting on in Israel right now is, stop it, all right? It's politics wherever it is. It doesn't matter, okay? England has a new king as of today, so what, all right? It's just another political theater. I don't care, because it's not going to work, okay? The king, the actual real king of all things is coming. I'm excited about that. I'm focused, I'm an activist for that. Okay? That's where I'm an activist. All right, next. And by the way, blame everybody but yourself. That is a political party. It's called the Democrats. Okay, so anyway, go ahead. Did I say that out loud?
From Truth of Ruth, it says, I don't believe in selling your soul to Hasatan, but do you know where that originated from?
I never read The Inferno by Dante, but probably came from there. The Catholic Church, I'm sure. Okay? All right? Actually, it came from the movie Damn Yankees. I'm kidding. Some of you are old enough to know the movie. Okay? And just remember, whatever Lola wants, Lola gets. Okay, so that's from the movie. Oh, I'm showing my age there. Actually, that movie's even old for me. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it was an invention that the Catholic Church got a hold of to try to use as leverage to scare people and manipulate whatever their agenda was, whatever, okay? We don't see scripturally any of that, all right? But again, I didn't read, most of what we understand about the devil in a sort of a Christology or whatever, the Christian sort of way, is out of this book by Dante called The Inferno. That's what the Catholic Church embraced as reality, okay? Even though it was a fiction. It was written as a fiction, all right? So I have not read the book. We talked about all these different levels of hell and all these other things, but you know, you're welcome to. And then maybe you'll understand where some of this stuff came from. All right? I just don't read much, so I wouldn't read it, but you're welcome to. I mean, I'm sure it would answer some questions as to understanding how we ended up with some of this stuff. So maybe I should read it just to see what it says. Anyway, next.
Okay, from Tom Losardo, the Torah portion, Leviticus 21, verse 7, priests do not take a woman defiled, whore, put away, but Haftorah, Ezekiel 44:22 says widow and divorced women. Why the difference?
Oh, it's not different, because later in Leviticus 21, it says that you need to take a woman who's a maiden. All right, so widow and divorced women have already had sexual interactions. And so there's more, not every verse covers everything, right? So there's more in that chapter that gives you more detail. Okay, that was in Leviticus 21. Okay, verse 14. It says, but a maiden of his own people he does take as a wife. Okay? So the whole thing there is, it gives other details of other things, but it's the idea of being a maiden. All right? Let's see what Ezekiel 44:22 says. And do not take as a wife a widow or divorced woman, but take maidens of the seed of the house of Israel. So it's the same idea. So he's not giving all of the details, but you know what? If you're taking a maiden, the maiden doesn't fit into any of those other things anyway. So that, just saying that would maybe have even been enough, okay? All right, next.
Okay, from Sandy Beach, says, what can we do to keep ourselves far from complacency, which destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah?
Listen to me every day. I will not let you get complacent. You cannot listen to me and be complacent. You'll have to turn it off. I mean, I wasn't even saying that as a joke. I mean, the way I talk and the way I teach and what he says through me, you're either going to have to turn it off or you're going to have to do something. Okay? You can't be complacent listening to this. All right? I mean, that's really the deal, is you have to have somebody reminding you always to move forward and to warn you of the dangers of standing still, of complacency. Because there really is no such thing as standing still. You're either going forward or backward. So if you're not moving forward, you're going backward, okay? And so you have to just kind of keep that in mind, okay? Things tend to, you got to understand what entropy is, all right? Things' tendency to degrade, all right? So you have to be growing, and then once you hit a certain point, now you start dying. I mean, it's not, okay, so you have, if I take something and throw it up in the air, it only goes up to a certain point, then it starts coming back down. So you got to make sure that you don't ever stop the moving up. Otherwise, you start coming back down, okay? And by the way, what did destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? What was really the big problem there? They were all doing what they wanted to do and didn't care what anybody else cared about. It was all about me, me, me. Oh, you have guests in your house. We want your guests. But they're my guests. I don't care. I want them, so I should be able to have them. That's the whole point. Everything's about me, 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 me. So it's not just complacency, really. Sodom and Gomorrah was not destroyed for complacency. They were destroyed for actively being self-sovereign in the extreme. And they were all grabbing at each other, too, because they didn't want to recognize anybody else's sovereignty. You have it. I want it. I should be able to take it. It should be mine. Nobody should ever tell me no. So all of you that have a problem hearing the word no, you may be in danger of some of this, okay? Because it's that inability to be corrected, because it's all about you getting what you want, doing what you want. Nobody should ever tell you differently. That's where you end up with a problem, which is another reason why a lot of people leave here, because I don't let them do that here. So they go into other places where they can do whatever they want, And they're not going to have anybody, talk like I talk from the microphone. They're all going to just say whatever they want, or hear some nice words and whatever it is, I listened to one guy the other day, and he got all apologetic, like he said something, ooh. I said, well, you know what, if I said it, you wouldn't even have noticed it. It was so light, okay, compared to what you hear coming out of my mouth. But he was all like, He was like he said something almost bad or something. I said, are you kidding me? Come listen to me. I'll get your attention. But that's the people want to hear the soft things and all that other stuff. This is what puts you in danger of Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, because then it's all about what you want. Okay? Sodom and Gomorrah is an example of everybody focused on what they want and not what he wants. Okay, so the more you focus on what you want and not what he wants, you're in danger of this. So that's the complacency. The complacency is, are you complacently not paying attention to it becoming more about you than him? Not taking that seriously. Not just having a complacent sort of, whatever. Because that complacency to me, the way it's described here, would sound, and again, I'm just reading into it, the idea like, well, I keep the Sabbath, kind of, whatever. As opposed to, I do what I want. versus I do what he wants. And I'm focused on what he wants. And every time I do something, I want to make sure, is it what he wants? And when I say every time I do something, I'm not talking about just everyday life things. I mean the things that have to do with the things he says he wants. Okay, he doesn't really necessarily care about whether you have a pastrami sandwich or a turkey sandwich, okay? Or what color your car is. But he is concerned about whether or not you're eating a ham sandwich or a turkey sandwich. Okay? So you have to kind of understand the whole idea, right? All right, next.
Okay, Kevin Gideon, and he had several of these, is being today's our 30th day of Omer count, isn't today would be the second Pesach? And then I think he had some follow-ups about if we ever did that, or if it would be appropriate to do that, or when would it be?
All right, so no, we do not have today as the second Pesach, and no, this would not be the second Pesach. Second Pesach would have been last week, because after all, Pesach is a 7-day event. Okay, and this is 30, actually not last week, but a couple of days earlier, because after all, we started the count after Pesach by 2 or 3 days, right? So it has to do with when you start the count, would not actually put you to Pesach. So it would have been on, today is Sivan, not today, what day is today in ER? Okay, today's the 15th of ER. So I guess from that point of view, last night, I guess would have been the Passover. Now I'm looking on my phone, okay? The second Passover would have been, so it had nothing to do with being 30 days, but it has to do with what day of the month is it. So the 14th of Aviv then turns into the 14th of ER, okay? So, but the thing is, as far as the second Passover, that was something that was done because of the temple. Because if something happened where you couldn't get there for the first one, or you became unclean and weren't allowed to take it, you waited for the second one, okay? So know that we don't have plans to do that here. It is enough to try to do one. Okay? All right, next.
Okay, from Messiah Complex or Matthew, is it appropriate for a covenant Israelite to work somewhere selling, preparing, and serving unclean meats?
That's fine. All right, job working in Babylon is a job, okay? Most of what you're going to be doing in Babylon is not going to be ideal and perfect. And then we're basically in the world, all right? Had a wonderful lady, she's still part of the congregation that doesn't get to come much anymore. She spent a lot of her career working at Red Lobster, walking around with a lobster on her apron. But she was kosher, Sabbath keeping for 40-something, whatever. I mean, for a long time, but it's a job. So no, don't worry about that.
Okay, and Judy B., with the red heifers and anticipation of rebuilding the temple, how will a new temple affect our walk as Messianic? What does that mean for the commands, those not in the land? Okay, so good question. The answer is that it's on a need-to-know basis, which means that when you need to know, he'll give you somebody like me who will tell you. But we don't need to know at the moment. So I don't have a good answer for it. You understand what I'm saying? So when there is, and there will be, at least sacrifices restarted, how much of the temple will be built at that point? Probably not a whole lot of it, but they'll get at least the temple going, because the sacrifices have to be interrupted, which means they have to start. So what should we be doing when that happens? I'm hoping for the answer when we need the answer, okay? But it's a lot of things he gives on a need-to-know basis, and right now we don't need to know, because it's not happening, okay? Oh, but they found this has happened before, okay? The Temple Mount Faithful have been around a long time, and they've been threatening every year they're going to go ahead and do this and that and the other thing, and they never do it, okay? So I've been listening to that nonsense. I shouldn't say nonsense, but I'm listening to that rhetoric for over 25 years, okay? So, and they've not done it yet. That doesn't mean they won't. I'm just saying I'm not hanging my hat on worrying about it. It's going to take them a while to get this thing going, and when they get this thing going, I'm sure, like other instant downloads that I get, he'll give me what I need to be able to tell you this is what we need to do, all right? But since we don't have the need, he hasn't filled up that limited space in my head with it, okay? All right, next. From Johanna, says, Rabbi, I have a book that I purchased before finding you. Seems like the book was written by a Messianic. I no longer watch any other teachers. So should I toss the book so as not as to no confusion?
Yes and no. If it's going to cause confusion, sure, toss the book. I don't toss books. I have like a very eclectic bookcase full of everything you can imagine, but none of that stuff is there to cause me any confusion. I don't look at it as references to, make decisions and things, but some of it's part of my journey and things that I've been through. Plus, people give me a lot of stuff, especially when they have books like this and they want to get rid of them. For some reason, a lot of them just stick them in the mail and mail them to me. So I've got all kinds of stuff on my shelf. So I don't throw out books because you never know when I may need that to someone who's asking me something and I could actually pull out the book and see what they're talking about, right? So I've got a Book of Mormon someone gave me. I've got Adventist books that people gave me. I've got 15 different versions of the Bible that people gave me. And so I have all this stuff. So I don't want to tell anybody you ever have to throw out a book. It's just a matter of if it's causing confusion, I'd get rid of it. Because you said so as to not cause confusion. Well, then the answer is yes, if you think it might cause you confusion. Because my reason for holding on to a book may not apply to you. Okay, you may not have any need for that. If I was in your shoes, I may have just gotten rid of all of this stuff just because who would need it? Why would I need all this stuff? So I might have thrown it all out. So it's up to you. It's not necessary that you keep it or throw it out. Your choice is yours, okay? All right, maybe one more because the kids are coming in.
Okay, from Nina Angelina, I put a mezuzah on my front door yesterday. I noticed in the movie The Chosen, they kissed their hand and touched the mezuzah. Is this a form of praying to idols? Please clarify.
All right, one of the many things I yell at the TV when we're watching. There's a few of them that do it right, but every now and then they don't, and it gets to be confused. Okay, so yes, if that's what they're doing, the answer is yes, but that's not what they're supposed to be doing, okay? The tradition actually, because again, this is Christians who wrote all this stuff, who developed the movie, so they don't know everything that they should properly from Judaism and from the history of things. So the mezuzah, out of the desire, we do things physically to express an inner desire, right? So it's a physical expression of wanting the word on our lips. So you are to touch the mezuzah and then your mouth, not the other way around. The other way around would be idolatry, okay? So we don't do this like kissing the mezuzah. We do is we touch the mezuzah and then our lips, okay? Now, that doesn't mean you have to do that. I'm just saying that would be the correct tradition that they're butchering, okay? It's just one of those things. Again, there will be a time coming up when we will have a Torah scroll. Yay. Right? And when we have the new building and we have the Torah scroll, we will do a Torah service. And the Torah service means you'll bring out the scroll, and the scroll will be brought amongst the camp. It will pass through the camp, and a tradition that there is when that happens is to touch the word and bring it to your lips. This is done either with your hand, it's done with your seat, it's done with the corner of your scriptures, okay? But the idea is that I tell people, I've done this in other congregations, we've done this Torah service, that I had to tell them when we do this, you are not kissing it. Doesn't matter, the next week somebody whined and complained and said, I thought that was idolatry. Why are everybody kissing the scroll? Why didn't you listen to anything I said? Okay? I mean, I literally said, this is not what we're doing. Don't do that way. You're trying to think, I want you to be aware that when you're doing it, you're expressing a desire for that to be here, okay? Which is a very praiseworthy thought, okay? Yahweh, open my lips that my mouth may bring forth your words, right? That's a very basic prayer, okay? And the desire that it would be on my lips. All right, anyway. So, no, you're correct. When you watch The Chosen, they're doing it wrong. They're doing a lot of things wrong, okay? There's certainly a whole bunch of things that are wrong, all right? And so, oh my gosh. Anyway, but that being said, they're depicting the version of what they think happened the way they want, okay? They are. I like some of the choices. I like some of the things that the Bible never tells us about that they actually throw in there that sort of make sense to me. So I think they actually made some very interesting choices that I was like, oh, I never really thought of that. That actually works pretty good. But other things just don't make any sense to me. They're just very challenging from that point of view. All right. So that being said, excellent job, Zone 1.